everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Life After Kids with Doctors Brooke and Lynn. I'm Dr. Brooke.
And I'm Dr. Lynn.
Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us again here today.
Welcome. We are talking about a topic that I think might hit a chord with many women.
I think it's going to.
If you have kids that are older, possibly moving out, and especially if you have been really wired as a caregiver. And what I mean by that is they're just some, you know them, there's just some people who are gifted, like, it's like they were born to be moms, you know? I don't think I was one of those people, but I've always admired the women who are like that. And I
just did it effortlessly. The more kids, the better. Rolling punches.
Right. You know who they are.
I know what you mean. I don't think that was me either. I mean, as much as I love my kids and dote on them, it was definitely probably not me.
Right. We're possibly talking about our very talented Enneagram number 2s.
Yes.
Likely. But we're talking about what happens after the kids grow up. And as moms, we are usually needed. That's a role. That's part of our identity, and what happens afterwards in feeling needed. And help me out describing this, because we don't have a real clear
I just think that
name on this topic.
I know. And before we
feeling useful and feeling needed.
Yes. Because if you don't know, when Dr. Lynn and I come on to talk, we really are just sitting down and pretty much starting a discussion. We don't have an outline. You typically do some research, which I'm thankful for, because you bring some really good points to the table and statistics and stuff like that. But this topic in particular, like, where is this going to head? And we're not sure. But I think for me, it came about because I like to relate things to things that are going on in my life. So I figure if it's happening to one of us, it's likely happening to one of you as well. And this sense of, I notice it when my kids come home from college, because like you said, feeling useful and needed. I think that part of me, at least, when I'm loving on the kids or taking care of them, my love language is acts of service. So to be doing things for them is part of me feeling useful and needed. And when they don't need that as much, or when they go to college, there can be quite a letdown. You can feel a little useless. And I think some of us, I hate to use the word because it's very strong, but some of us have even said, like, almost irrelevant. Like, where do you pick that back up then?
Yeah, I think it's that sense of, like, not feeling seen, or feeling like when we use words like, I feel irrelevant. Mm-hmm. That is a strong indication for me that your identity does not have a purpose. So, like, if you are seeing yourself as a mom and then your kids go away, you're not feeling relevant because you're not being put to use in the way that you feel you describe yourself or characterize yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? It has to come, it's like on a basic level, based how we see ourselves.
Yeah.
And our identities that we carry for ourselves and our roles. So I think to a certain extent we all feel this when the kids get older. And I strongly emphasize that I feel like for most women, yes, we're sad that the kids are moving on. We kind of wish they were little again at times, but it's so much more about you than it is about them, because we've all along known that we were going to raise these humans and they were going to go off.
That was the end goal.
And the quietness and the feelings of uselessness, or the feelings of not feeling needed, are more about us needing to now channel our gifts and our talents and put ourselves back out in the world, find a vehicle again to exhibit our purpose. Right? It's so much more about us than it is about our kids.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've discussed this. What you're saying is, if you're feeling a real sense of grief or sadness over your kids growing up and leaving home, it's probably less about that and more about you just don't know what to do next. And you're feeling a little lost in your life, right?
Yeah. And I think the sooner you accept that, you might resist against that for a while. But the sooner you kind of open yourself up to the fact that that's the cause. And we always, right, we're big proponents of get to the root cause, because if you stay on the surface, you're not going to fix anything for long term. You're just going to Band-Aid it. So the sooner you accept this as part of your root cause, if that's true for you, I think the quicker you get to a place where you can be open to the suggestions in the world and what God might put in front of you and whatever your beliefs are. Those opportunities that sort of land in our lives serendipitously, perhaps, or by design, however you think, however you believe, because you're open and you've accepted it. That's deep.
It was, and I feel like we have this. The energy here is very deep.
Yeah,
right now. They're like, bring it up. But that's not a bad place to be either. But yeah, that was deep, but it's true. Yeah, and that's just a tricky place to be because we want to figure out how to take that energy and put it into something good, to have a new place to set that, right? So that we're not feeling lost or less needed or useless.
Yeah, I think you can stay there. And I think to a certain extent, we're all going to want to marinate in that for a minute.
Sure.
Right? We're all going to feel
process it.
You're going to process it. But I think eventually you're going to want to work through that. And to get to a place where if you are feeling sort of useless, not needed, what's the opposite of that? Feeling useful and feeling needed. So how can you position yourself so that you can have those needs met? Right? And so the first place we would say to start would be to take your What's Your Purpose quiz, find out a little bit more about how you are wired.
Absolutely.
So that you can find and be open to the right opportunities that will align with your particular set of strengths and
Agreed.
talents. What would you add to that? Where do you go from there?
Yeah. So first, knowing yourself better and knowing what your talents are. You would probably second then brainstorm on some ideas that might fall into that place. You might want to learn the Enneagram could be useful. So dive into that if you haven't. Read the road back to you. Get to know your number because that will help you know what you might be best suited at. And then I would say brainstorm some ideas of areas that might be good for you. Also download the goals framework because that will help you start to put together different areas of your life so you can start to feel more useful and to kind of track down and watch your goals, right? Put that together, be more strategic about it. I think those are some generalized, simple things that we can all do. But if I'm speaking specifically to the mom who was for the most of the time home with her kids or is the Enneagram number 2 and is really a caretaker and really feeling that sense of loss or uselessness in some way over the kids not needing her, like where can you start to look specifically to channel that energy now? And there are many different ways that you can do that.
Yeah, I think people get so stuck because it was their identity as their mom. So they get so stuck on the fact that their kids are not there. I can't do it. I'm just going to have to feel this loss. Well, what if you could find somebody else who needs you, for instance, volunteering at a senior living home or helping out. We have the story of the lady who would rock babies in the NICU that were addicted. And they need extra, just human touch. So we had people that would do that. Foster care.
I have a good friend who lives in Alaska that fosters babies. Her kids are grown. She's still running businesses and they foster. You really are that caretaker. There are so many beyond, I hope I didn't cut you off. Beyond volunteering at an assisted living or nursing home, do you know how many people are looking for somebody to go into their elderly loved one's home through the day, stopping by, staying there for the day, that could be trusted, that is skilled at caretaking, that would pay for that if you're looking for something on the side that will allow you to caregive, to make the meals and to take care of someone and to love on someone? What a blessing that would be, not only to you, but to somebody else.
And I just feel like it needs to be said, can we take a moment and just celebrate and shine a light on what a beautiful thing it is to be a caretaker? Selfless, loving, just so noble, so full of honor to care for somebody else. And I think that we can look at it and maybe because we don't have the big job at a company and we're selling this, or we're not in front of a camera doing that we think that it's not worthwhile. And oh my gosh, it's so far the opposite of the truth. It's such a beautiful thing. And I just want, if that's you and you've ever felt bad about it or ever thought it's just this,
less than or something like that,
or it's just, I'm just taking care of this, you are what truly makes the world go round. I mean, we need you so much in your skills and your beautiful talents in the world. And, please put them to use. Please.
Right. And by the way, I have friends and know so many women who had full-fledged careers before kids and decided to give that up so that they could be home, if not full-time, on a more regular basis with their kids. And you might be the person that was, an attorney or a social worker or whatever it was that you were doing that stepped away from that to be at home with your kids, and what a gift. And now you're going, do I go back into the workforce? Do I do something else? I think we're here to tell you in this conversation, if you just loved being there for your kids and caretaking, you don't necessarily go back to that field. Think about this, having a purpose in another way.
I love that you said that.
Do what is passionate for you.
It comes down to you and seeing that. So we have these different personality types. We have these different strengths profiles. Yeah. One of them is being a caregiver. That might be you. And that's our point, right? Like,
exactly.
Celebrate that, honor that, respect that by doing more of that. It obviously brings you joy. And that's what we're all about, is helping women to get to that place where it's not work, right? It's food that fills your soul. It's something that makes you come alive in the insides. And I know if that was you with your kids when they were babies, we can't go back to that, unfortunately, but we can possibly recreate that with somebody else who needs you and needs your love and your care.
And some of us can't wait to be the grandmother to get to do that again with our grandkids.
So,
and what a blessing if we have the opportunity, and that's what you want from your life, to babysit, to caretake while you're, either daughter or daughter-in-law and son or son-in-law, whatever the case may be, are at work. What a blessing to be able to give back. And there's another example of why we need to be taking care of our health now, so that we can be active enough to do those things if we want to. It's just is so important. But beyond that, there's also, we've talked about, helping out the neighbor, young couple that needs help here and there, or just needs a break for a couple hours a week, or a nanny, babysitting, nannying. There are so many ways to get your fill of that if you don't want to go the path of maybe fostering or, elderly or adult care. There's just so many ways. And then to that end, again, like, what about respites and people that are special needs or handicapped that you could help? I mean, this is just like a wide open array of ways that you could channel that energy that you had with your kids into something positive as they're moving on and maybe not needing you as much.
Sometimes we get stopped because there are too many possibilities, right?
Yes.
We get a little overwhelmed, but the point of
that
it is
paralyzing too.
For you, if you take that What's Your Purpose quiz, and if you know that caretaking in of itself, so the actual art of like taking care of another human, and there's going to be stuff inside of there. Nobody likes to change diapers. I mean, if you do, great, go do more of that. But we're not saying you're going to, I just love all of this and I love the whole part of it. But fundamentally that just being there to make food or drive your kids someplace or
cook for.
That just at an extra level, like more so than your friends, right? More when you look around and compare yourself a little bit. This is one of the good places to do that, safe place to do that. If that is you, then make sure as you're part of your identity, that you find a place to
channel that. Yes.
Yeah.
And also, this came up for me because I don't even think I was realizing that I had a sense of that until Anthony came home for the summer after his first year of college. And that first morning, I did a post on it, making him breakfast. And it was such a nice, so definitely take the opportunity. And I'm sure if you are a number 2 Enneagram or you're really, really missing your kids, I can imagine you're the mom that when your kids come home,
there's a whole
you got all the food made and can't wait to make breakfast and all the fun things, So those are nice moments too. But it is such an interesting evolution that we're going through here,
So here's how you would know you were a caregiver. Did you make him breakfast on the second morning?
No.
if you're a caregiver, if you're a true caregiver, you're still making him breakfast. He's been home for what, 2 weeks now, 3 weeks?
3 weeks. And
right?
You know what? That's so funny to your point, because I did a post, because a lot of the posting that I do on our social media is what I'm doing in like real life time. And I did a post about like how happy I was to make breakfast. And then the next week I did a post was like, when is he leaving? He's driving me nuts. I can't stand the mess. I can't stand all the extra food. I can't stand So funny. Yeah, you just
I'm not ragging on you,
You
by
know
the way.
that.
It's
No,
just
it's
how you're set up. You're a great mom.
Yes.
You're a great mom, and your boys know that. But
we're all wired differently.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to challenge everybody to look at it a little bit more granularly, because sometimes it's helpful to do that, to like zoom in on it and see how it is compartmentalized a little bit along the lines of some people are great, caregivers, and some people are great at other things. But to know that about yourself is really useful, because you can leverage that because the things that we're good at, the way that we're wired, when we do those things, that is what creates joy. And that's what life after kids is all about, is finding more ways to create more ease, more joy, more fulfillment, more meaning.
Yes.
Right? To give of our talents. And that for sure is one way to do it if you're a caregiver.
You just brought up another point for me that I was thinking through, because if you are in Enneagram 2, if you tend to be the caretaker, so the negative side about this is you can have the tendency, this can look very selfless and very honorable, and it is, but you can also have the tendency to take it too far, wherein you're putting everybody else's needs before your own.
The martyr.
And you're doing it because you want them to love you back. Right? And a lot of us do that with our kids. We just shower too much on them and give them too much in hopes of getting it back. And then if they don't, we're like, why? Like, they come home and I'm cooking all this food for them, I'm doing all this stuff, and they still want to be out, and they don't, and you feel underappreciated. And B, you spend so much time doing things for everyone else and putting them first that you end up maybe in a not so healthy place, because you're not meeting any of your own needs.
Right. So the beautiful part of the Enneagram, with whatever types you are, we're looking at type 2 today, is that
I can't believe this conversation was going here, by the way.
I know. But I felt like it needed it. It's a part of a coping mechanism. And so somewhere along the lines, most number 2s have felt like they have to give up themselves to receive love, right? So that's what you're doing, to your point. So just be careful that you don't, I guess, give and expect too much in return, right? Because we have seen that backfire. Is that your point with adult children, where it's like, oh, well, if I do this for you, then you'll spend time with me, and it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah. And I've heard this, and I've seen this play out in my own life, where everything I do for you, and you can't, and you can't. We got to be mindful of not getting in that habit of sort of manipulating the situation, or almost a way of bribery, like, let me do all of these things for them so that then they'll want to come home more often, or they're like, let's make sure that we're doing it from a place of just loving on our kids. Just be careful and be mindful of that, because that can go to an unhealthy place. I don't want to make anyone feel bad or judge, but I'm just saying, be aware that there's another side to that coin. But also, more importantly, something that you probably want to be very, very aware of, and something that probably doesn't come naturally to you at all, and you probably aren't going to want to do, but you absolutely need to do, is make time for your own self-care.
Couldn't be more true.
Yeah. So you're gonna be the one that we're gonna have to prod to say, go schedule yourself a massage. It's okay to do that.
Yeah. You might need to attach it to what your point was think about your grandkids. And if you want to be here and be healthy and be able to move around and play with them, then you have to do X, Y, Z for yourself so you can be in that place. So you might have to tie it to the relationships of the people that you love. And
yes. Again, it's the why, like your why has to be big enough. So it might not be that just because you're going to take care of yourself, but you want to take care of yourself, because when you take care of yourself, you can take care of other people better. And all those people in your life. The other thing is Bristol sitting here pawing me, if you really feel the need to be useful or caretaking, You could get yourself a pet if you don't already have one. And we just recently did an episode on that.
Yeah.
Right. So there are just so many different opportunities and ways. But I think it's just such is an important topic, because I think as moms, and in particular, again, if you're an Enneagram 2, we can get to this place where we start to feel a little bit useless or, less needed, because was such a big part of our identity.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as if you feel useless and if you feel like you're not needed, then you're not in a space where you're connected to an outlet where you can give. I mean, that's like Mrs. Obvious right there. But connect yourself to some place that you can give again, whether that's volunteering or all of the ideas that we gave you. It's just, that's what you got to do. If you feel useless, then go do something where you're needed. Go to a place where you're needed.
Yeah.
Right? And let go of the fact that that's at the home, because that's had to change, unfortunately. But somebody, go attach it to somewhere where you really, right?
Right. Hey, you could also be the person that's going to go and work in the lunchroom of a school if you love to love on and cook for your kids. There's an awesome lady. This is like side note, but it came to mind because there's a woman that comes up on her TikTok feed all the time. She's called like Lunch Lady Berg or something. And she's adorable. She's probably about our age. She has a kid that's in high school, but she's a lunch lady, and she goes to all of her TikToks are about the food she's making for all the kids and like the relationship there. And they know her. It's just a super cute, like that could be a really great place for you to channel your, if you're looking for something to do now. You could have, instead of like
work at the school,
a couple kids in the home, you could have a good 100 kids that you're caring for a day.
Doesn't sound like fun to me.
Not for you, but for some of you it might. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. What else have you got?
Yeah, just if you're feeling useless, not needed, go somewhere where you're needed and where you're useful.
I don't know if that was very enlightening.
No, but it's true, right? Because,
well,
the whole point of, we could sit and we can just stew in that and feel bad and, well, or you could go do something about it.
I think your point is we always have a choice.
We do.
And we can choose to stay where we are and just, wallow and feel bad and be nostalgic, which there's nothing wrong with nostalgia. Or we can take a step back and say, what is it I'm feeling? And if you can really zero in on, it's that you just really miss being there for your kids and taking care of them. It's not just like the nostalgia for their childhood and the passing of time and saying goodbye to it. Eric's, that's all normal. If you're really missing on taking care of the kids, then, what can you do to replicate that? Because there are many ways. We just gave you a few examples. I'm sure there are so many more out there. Definitely think about putting, as we recap and just go through a couple things, self-care on your list, right? And be mindful of not to overdo it with your older kids, because if you're always showering them and, grandkids come along and you're doing the same thing, it can get suffocating. And what you might find is that they're going to pull back. We've had conversations about this too. So just be mindful of that.
Yeah. Or you don't want to enable your children either.
And that's the other thing.
Paint yourself in a corner then. And if you want to try to get free, unfortunately, you've set up some conditioning there that's not going to allow for that, maybe.
Right. Because they've gotten so used to just you taking care of and doing everything for them. Yeah. I'm going to be laughing tonight when I go to bed when you said the real way you're going to know if you're a caretaker is that you do that on day 2. And I said, no. How well do you know me?
Well, I know you enough to know that you're not, wired as an Enneagram 2. That, we have some good friends that are, and it's just, I hope that was enlightening for you, that some of you are listening and go, oh my goodness, that's me.
Yeah.
And I hope because of that, you feel so much better about yourself when you leave this conversation, because it's, as I said earlier, it's such a beautiful thing, and you should be so happy about that and proud of yourself for that's who you are and that's what you bring to this world.
Yeah.
So freaking
it's such
cool.
a gift. It is. And also, by the way, it might also be why, just to give yourself some grace, if you're looking around going, why am I struggling so much more than some of my other mom friends? That could be why.
We really are speaking to you in the sense of you're an avatar if you're a Enneagram 2, right?
Yeah.
For what we do. We all have difficulties to a certain extent, but I can see this being especially especially
difficult.
Especially hard. Yeah. Because of that feeling that you need to attach again to something where you can care for. And it was right there. And it was for 20 years, you did it. And then it, don't have those opportunities in the same way anymore. So
yeah, it's tricky. I was just sitting here thinking as we start to wrap up, it would be interesting to do a talk like this, but on Enneagram 4 and all the options for them after kids, right? Like the artists,
the romantic, kind of on the moodier side, stereotypically, but they definitely have they feel all the feels and, I mean,
creative outlets for them. This is where I think it just hit me because we started out when we talked about usefulness, because we're talking about usefulness needed, and it sort of circled to Enneagram 2. And this is where, case in point, knowing your makeup is so important before you just jump into something. Because this is where, if I knew you were an Enneagram 4, you knew you're an Enneagram 4, and you're wondering what to do next at your kids' order, might be where I would be saying, what about taking an art class? Or have you thought about getting back to your writing? Or, what is those, you know what I mean?
The creative side.
As opposed to with somebody who's a 2 that's feeling a little useless or less needed, you're probably going to need to find a way to caretake. So it just is interesting to think about it through that lens, because now we can get way more specific on what steps you should take, or at least what avenues you should start to channel your energy to make sure that you feel as fulfilled as possible in this space.
And that is how we see,
and so productive.
That is how we see things. I mean, there's a lot of layers to this, but that is such a foundational place to start, is by looking at some of these constructs, like your Enneagram, your behavioral type, which is how you cope, looking at your strengths profile, which what you came with in your DNA, you're kind of hardwired for that, looking at your passions, taking a piece of where's the common ground, where do those things intersect, and that's your thing. That's how we help you find your thing. And we're doing that more in depth with some of our module work over in our community.
Yeah.
So come join us over there in the Life After Kids community. Take us home.
Well, ladies, thank you for joining us. I think that was like a wrap it up. Let's go. I'm done. I need some coffee because I've been talking to you for an awfully long time today. But ladies,
she knows me well.
I do. Yeah, I can see it on your face. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us here today. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. I hope you found this useful. I think we should do another follow-up and break down some of the other Enneagram numbers,
and we need to release our Enneagram quiz.
Yes, I know. We have the purpose quiz for you. We probably should do it through the lens of the Enneagram. I think that would be super helpful.
Yep.
And I think we mentioned this at the start, but if not, The Road Back to is a great book. I'll link it in the show notes, and I'll link it in the newsletter. But we love having you here. DM us. Please let us know what you're thinking. Make sure you're rating and reviewing the podcast. Share it with your friends, please. We grow best via word of mouth and organically. And www.lifeafterkids.com is where you can find all the free resources, the goals framework we talked about, and the purpose quiz. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And I just hope you have a great day and an even better week. And do something that makes you feel useful today.
Yay, that's perfect.
And you go get a cup of coffee.